What's up, everyone? Today I wanted to go through this article I found on The Atlantic through Apple News Plus called The New Singlehood Stigma. Tagline: Society tells us we should have a partner, but we shouldn't want one, by Faith Hill. I want to talk about it because I've discussed what little experience I have with this on the channel, so I thought it would be interesting to go through and see what it has to say about this complete paradox they have here, that we should have one but not want one. Just to be clear, today is, in many ways, the best time in American history to be single. In the 18th century, bachelors paid higher taxes and faced harsher punishments for crimes than their betrothed counterparts. A man without a wife, Benjamin Franklin said, is but half a man. Single women, more likely, naturally, to be seduced by the devil, were disproportionately executed for witchcraft. Through the 19th century and into the 20th, women had limited options for employment, and banks could refuse to let them open accounts until 1974, so the choice for many of them was marriage or poverty. I even heard that in the 1950s, you couldn't even check into a hotel unless you were married, whether or not you were with a spouse. Yeah, it was all the rage back then. Forgive me then if I sound ungrateful when I say this. Americans are still extremely weird about single people, but now the problem isn't just that singlehood is disparaged. Sometimes it's that singlehood is celebrated. Relentlessly, annoyingly celebrated. Let me explain. The assumption that partnership is a priority has not disappeared in this country. In 2019, when the Pew Research Center asked participants how necessary a committed romantic relationship is for a fulfilling for life, nearly 60% said it's important, and roughly 30% said it's essential. Of course they did. Couples are the ones who get +1 invites to weddings or office parties or family gatherings. They're the ones who might be able to share health insurance or sponsor each other for visas or get tax benefits. Routine life, paying rent, groceries, getting groceries, reserved hotel rooms, is often far more expensive for single people, especially single parents, who can't as easily split costs or buy in bulk. We're still living in a partnered person's world. Actually, the partnered person's world sounds like a more recent phenomenon because before the 70s, before the sexual revolution and all that, single income households were more a thing in the 50s and think 60s. You know, mom would stay home with the kids while the dad would go off to work. Single income would cover a house, the necessities for however many kids you had, usually about three or four. So, the partnered person's world is a more recent phenomenon. It was still a single income, but that didn't mean you were single. At the same time, I've noticed a counter impulse, perhaps a reaction to all that injustice, a kind of public cheerleading for singlehood. Single celebrities seem pressed to make statements about how much they love solo life, and then promptly enter a relationship. People use terms like sologamy, self marriage, or self partnered. Thank you, Emma Watson. Or You cannot make this stuff up. Quirky alone. There's a link to it. Therapists advise embracing one's single status with phrases such as, I'm focused on myself right now, as if not having a partner automatically means you must be growing. And of course, much of this singlehood PR campaign targets women specifically. Single men have never faced quite as much scrutiny. They've had the luxury, more often, of being seen as full people in their own right. The 21st century single woman is the one who has to prove her complete humanity by performing her contentment. She is empowered. She's badass. She slays. She might also grieve, but no one really wants to talk about that. Just like how no one really wants to talk about how some people still view single men as outliers or they think it's weird. Yeah, it goes both ways. Actually, it reminds me of one of my friends. Nah, never mind. I've spoken with a lot of single people in my reporting and just in the course of life who enjoy full, happy lives, complete with friends, family, meaningful work, and creative outlets, and who also yearn for a partnership. These things are not mutually exclusive. I struggle sometimes to convey this in my own writing. Describing the absence of romantic love as a lack feels regressive. But then, so many people are telling me they feel they're lacking something, something they want very badly. Who am I to deny that sense of loss? I've been single most of my adult life. I know that when you want a relationship, not having one can feel lonely. Feeling like you shouldn't want one just makes you lonelier, and all the polite cheeriness about singlehood, especially from partnered people, in a society still designed for couples, can feel disingenuous and patronizing. Well, I'd take a quick look at the society still designed for partnership. I'm gonna mark that one for later. I just want to say that, yeah, a lot of things are designed for couples and groups, as I mentioned in previous videos. Bowling alleys, yeah, you can still technically go bowling alone, but they clearly want large groups. I'm talking like 4 or 5 people, not just pairs. Like they want more people in there because more people are likely to buy more food, which means more money. I'm sure that the servers want them too, if because of the increased likelihood of tips. Comment down below if you work in the service industry and you also like when there are larger groups just because there are increased likelihood of tips. I've spoken with a lot of single people. Oh, wait, I already read that. Now would be a great time for some nuance. In recent years, the number of single people has been growing, in the United States as well as many other countries. Some have cast that shift as a victory, a sign that people are throwing off the shackles of compulsory coupledom and bad relationships. Others have declared it an emergency, arguing that frustrated singles are giving up on romance, and that they're going to miss out. I think both of these theories are a little bit true. Some people love being single, and some people hate it. Plenty fall somewhere in the middle. They're happy with their life, and they won't settle for anything less than amazing, and they're disappointed that someone amazing hasn't come along. Singlehood isn't really unique in this sense. No one has a perfect life. Some people don't have the career they'd like or the means to pursue their passion. Others long for children or find themselves tied to a city while they're dreaming of living in the country. None of that obviously defines them as people or reduces them to objects of pity. And yet we tiptoe around the wish for love as if recognizing it would imply that single people are all regrettably unfulfilled. For the pursuit of romance to carry any shame is especially odd in 2025 when online dating, now the primary way partners meet, requires that you cop to have cop? What? What is this? Is that short for capitulate to having some desire? Let's just roll with that for now. Your profile isn't going to create itself. Instead of just acknowledging that totally commonplace aspiration, though, we romanticize serendipity. People hope that love will fall into their laps so they never need to debase themselves by seeking it, or they say they're just poking around on the apps out of casual curiosity. The culture tells us simultaneously that we should be in a couple and that we should feel whole all by ourselves. We should have a partner, but we shouldn't want one. The way I like to frame it is I agree with David from How to Beast that something like that should be icing on the cake that is your life. So, if you haven't watched any videos from How to Beast, here's how he likes to put it. Things you do are the actual cake of life. So, let's say your life is a cake. The flour, eggs, and all the other ingredients to make the actual cake itself would be your hobbies, your career, I guess if you want to make your career that, or things you do independently that don't require validation from another person, man or woman, or someone of the opposite sex, or who you find attractive. Put all those together, and you still have a really good cake, but it is a little more complete with the icing that is a relationship. So that even without the icing, it's still a good cake. It's still nice and sweet. I say I agree with that for the most part, to be completely honest. I guess if I were to take a food analogy, um, the chicken patties that I made, oh god, I have to get more. Now I ate the last one last night, but the frozen chicken patty is pretty good on its own, but it's better when I drench it in buffalo sauce and turn into a buffalo chicken patty that I put on a sandwich to make a buffalo chicken sandwich. Without the buffalo sauce, it's still a really good sandwich. But with the buffalo sauce, it's even better. Or it's a nice little change of pace, especially if I decide to go with barbecue instead. Anyway, let's get back to the article. The point is, something like that should be a nice little bonus if you happen to be in one, but I can understand not wanting it to be the end all be all. For a long time, I realize now, I internalized this. My friends, experiencing extended strings of bad dates and rejections and false starts, talked candidly about their sadness. All the while, I was sunny. Sure, I'll date someone if they turn up, I insisted. But look how good our lives are. We have each other. I felt some pride for being so self-actualized. Excuse me. Such a good friendship loving feminist. I also felt, I'm sorry to say, a twinge of embarrassment from my friends. They wanted so openly. I had it backwards though. I was the one who was uncomfortable with singlehood. The idea of desiring a partner, yet not having one, made me itch, but trying to run away from it only put me on an optimism hamster wheel. If I could go back, I wouldn't tell my friends that it's all going to work out or that they don't need anyone. You're perfect, I would say instead. And this is hard. Nobody's perfect. That being said, I think the better thing to say is it's a nice little bonus if it happens, but not the end of the world if it doesn't. And in the meantime, you can enjoy all the benefits, like the ones I mentioned in my video about. I actually need to look up the exact title really quick, but it was about why I prefer being single. The Valentine's Day special. Yeah, I actually want to read some of the comments to refresh myself on some of the pushback I got. Yeah, one of them described it as, quote, an unimaginable feeling being with someone you love. And then rebutted my point about how I want, how I like the freedom to watch what I want when I want by saying it's about who you're watching with, not what you're watching. Which I firmly stand by everything I said in that video, by the way. I am not going back on that. Yes, it's nice to watch things with other people. Like when I went to see, what was it? Ghostbusters Afterlife. It was both fun to see it with my friends and we saw Paul Rudd getting a Baskin Robbins ice cream pint from Walmart, and I whispered to him, Baskin Robbins always finds out. And then we fist bumped because the joke being he played Ant-Man who worked in a Baskin Robbins, and that's where the line Baskin Robbins always finds out comes from. But then when I watched Ghostbusters Afterlife on my own 2 years later, yeah, 2 years later, I still enjoyed watching it on my own, the overall movie, and thinking of that connection when it came up. So yeah, who you're with can enhance it, but it's still a good movie on its own. Just like the cake analogy. Without the icing, you still have a really dope cake, as How to Beast David would say. So I'm gonna leave it here for the video. You let me know in the comments down below what you think of all this. Give this video a like, subscribe for daily videos, and I will see you soon.